Hello, everybody. Um, so I haven't been on in a while, but I thought I'd tie a fly. Um, just doing something to kill some time tonight. Um, I recently got a gift card to a local fly shop and went and bought some flies for the area. I bought a couple just to have as an example, but I'm basically copying those flies. This one is kind of like a shrimp pattern, and yeah, so I'll just go ahead and get started. Something new on this fly tying, I have to use readers because I can't see anymore. So let me get switched around here and we'll get started. So starting off with this brand is Umpqua hook. It's in size 4, model U401. Pretty good deal on those hooks. They are for saltwater, so they'll be good for around this area. I'm having the same issue I did before with the phone staying focused, so we'll just try to see what happens here. I guess as long as my hand's there, it'll focus. So starting with some blaze orange thread, I'm gonna have these crystal flash, this UV orange. When you shine, I don't know if you can see that, but when you move it, it makes it flash purple spots. So it gives it some kind of cool stuff going on there. I've got some bead eyes. I usually use bead chain, but I actually bought these weighted eyes because they'll need to sink in. Hey, Mom. They'll need to sink in the surf, so that's good. I got this flash dubbing from Amazon, and it's not the greatest thing, but I've got these colors. I'm probably going to use the red and the gold. It's the reason it's not very great is this stuff is like, you know, when you go to dinner and you get a toothpick stuck in your sandwich, and it's got the little fluff on the end of it. It's the same stuff. So the red, you can see that it's not very hefty flash. So in order to make it thicker, you have to either double it up and twist it or twist it with another one. So I'm going to make it red looking, but have it still sparkle a little bit. So I'm going to use that gold. And I'm going to use some deer hair for the beard. And I've got this is some leftover from the last fly, but I've got some bucktail in orange and white. And this is actually from a deer that my niece harvested when we were at my cabin a couple of years ago off the tail from that fly. So anyway, let me go ahead and get started. I may get interrupted here in a minute because my wife is finishing up a voice lesson. But in the meantime, so we'll go ahead. Basically, I want to leave some room for the head at the end. So I'm going to start my thread about right there. That'll be where I end the body and then start the head. You just want to give a layer of thread on the hook. And this is actually going to be the bottom of the hook when it's in the water. I'm going to put the bead eye on there, and it's going to flip over when it's in the water. And I want to come around the hook bend all the way down here. And I'll cut that tag off, so we'll get in the way later. It's the things that I'm going to tie in are actually going to, when the hook is sitting there, it's going to pop up and stick up like antenna or like feelers. So I want that to be a good solid base. I'm trying to keep my hand here to see if it'll help it stay focused. And you can go up and down this a couple of times. You don't want it to get too bulky, although this is going to be a fly that sinks, so it won't matter too much if it's bulky. I just don't want it to be a big fat fly. So I'll leave that hanging right there. So the first thing I want to tie in, I want the flash to be the last of the three things. I'm going to tie in the white, just white bucktail that I have, and I'm going to see all these little bits sticking off. I want to try to take away those those guys. Pull those out. Get these things out of the way. Not that it matters because I'll have orange in there, but I had an orange one in there. So I'm going to get these little scragglers because they just won't look great. Okay, get that longest one out too. And I'm going to make this so it's about the length of the hook sticking off. So I'm going to start it right about there. And I want to cut it off before my tie-in point. So I'm actually going to cut that off before I tie it in. Like that. So I'll go ahead and start that tie-in right here. Make sure it stays on top of the hook. Go back up to my point here at the top. You actually don't have to tie all that, like go all the way down like I just did, because you're just going to come in next with this other stuff. So I'm going to do the same thing with the orange and get rid of the fluffy stuff on the bottom. Any weird stragglers that are sticking out. So they kind of have a big grouping. Maybe like that. When you cut this stuff away from the tail, usually you have to clear out. There's some under hairs here, kind of an undercoat that you have to get out of the way. So I'm just going to make this the same length as the other one. Like that. Go ahead and get a couple of turns of thread on here just to hold it in place, and then I'll come back and cut this off like I did the other one. Sharpen my scissors. Okay. I'll go forward with this one as well. And then I'm going to get my crystal flash, my UV crystal flash. I'm just going to dig out a strand with my scissors. Actually, there's some already sticking out right there. So yeah, I cut a corner here, so all I got to do is reach in and grab it, and it keeps it from getting crazy. You just pull it out. The problem with this stuff is if you take it out, it'll get all twisted together, and then if you try to brush it out, it ends up looking like this. It gets all twirled together, so it's pretty rough. But get my piece that I pulled out of here. And like I said, you can see it if you just move it like this. You can see where the bend is kind of wavy like this, and everywhere there's a spot is kind of like purple looking. So I'm just going to fold it over and cut it in half 3 times. So I want to have a few pieces here. And this is going to go in where the hair went. Same place. So yeah, I just folded it over in half. Cut it in half. And then fold it again. I'm doing this off screen because it's a little hard to handle. Okay, so now I got 4 pieces. I'm going to do it one more time with all 4. So now I've got 8 short pieces, and I'm going to tie these in just the same way I did with the hair, but I'm going to make it so that it sticks up a little further, just a little bit further than those hairs. Right here. And this time I'm going to go all the way over with all this. I'm going to do loose wraps at first to get back to the front. Just these loose pieces are tied down, and then I'm going to come back and cover that again. In a minute, I'm going to come over this with that kind of dubbing material, and I want it to be an orange base. If you can see in the middle of it, you can see it's orange. Sand fleas are a type of crab, small crab. It's kind of like a crab crossed with a shrimp, I guess. I don't know what the actual relationship is, but they're kind of gray looking, but they have, when they have eggs, they're bright orange, and they're up by the legs. And so if you have orange, it's good for the fish that are in the surf, apparently. I've not used these yet, but that's what I was told, and that's what I'm copying on the... I'll never call it Longhorns, Mom. And besides, this is more of UT green, UT Tennessee, or orange, not green. Wow, my brain is good. So I've got another piece of, where's it at? I cut one piece off. Oh, here it is. Now, I've got this piece of iridescent flash also. And I'm going to tie it. I want this to be orange, but I want to tie this in so that it's orange with some sparkle. And this is kind of the best thing that I have for that. So I actually don't like this string base yet. I want it to be a little thicker. So I'm going to keep going. It's going to get covered up, but this part down here I want to be a little bit thick. So I'm going to tie this in. I'm going to tie it so that I come around. This stuff is pretty slick, so I want to make sure I get a good covering of it here so it doesn't get pulled out. Okay, I'm going to come back up here, and I'm going to stop right here at the top of this bend because I'm going to tie in the eyes right there. I'm going to run this out of the way, though, with some loose wraps so that it's easier to move this around. I'm just going to wrap this so that it touches as I go around. So I'm kind of crossing over this so that it holds it in place. And that should hold it in place right there. And I can cut that out. Be careful when you do this not to cut your thread. And then I'm going to take some clear nail polish. Some people use super glue. Some people use like a UV setting goop that I don't have. But I'm just doing this so that it doesn't slide around on the hook. Give it a little bit of strength. So this is intended to be used at the beach in the surf. So it's going to get tossed around pretty bad. It's going to be hit by fish with sharp teeth, probably. assuming any fish bite it. And then it's also, when the waves come around, it's going to be thrown into the sand and knocked around in the sand. So you want it to be a strong tie. So these are the bead eyes. They're weighted. They're heavy. I'm going to lay this down, get a couple of turns on this. And these, when you first tie them in, they sit crooked, but when you cross them over and straighten them up, they'll start to sit the way you need them to. And so when you tie these in, you just kind of do some turns like that under each side, but over the hook. And then you do some crossing ties like that. Just enough to build it up some. It doesn't really need a ton. And you just do this to tighten up the cross ties. So I'm going to go right there, back to the hook point. And then the next step is going to be tying in the flash, this flash. So this is what I meant. This stuff is really thin. When you get this at a fly shop, it's better. It's always thicker, and you can get it with longer flash pieces. These flash pieces aren't very big. But these are fine, I guess. The fish, I guess, don't care too much. Because it's not like there's animals out there that have this exact thing on them. So I'm going to cut off a piece of the red, about 8 inches long, I guess, maybe 10 inches. You don't have to cut it off. You can just use it like you're using thread on a bobbin. But with me needing to tie these or twist these together, it makes it a little bit easier when you have it cut off already. So as far as the colors that I chose, like I said, the guy at the fly shop said that oranges and reds mixed together are a good combination for surf fishing. Both surf perch and striped bass will go for that. And there's so many other variations out there of fish that will destroy your hook if you get it in the right place. So one of the things you do with this is basically a thread with a little flash tied into it. It's like Christmas garland, but very tiny. But you want to take some off of the end a little bit, so you just have thread to tie in. I'll do that with both of them. One thing about this stuff is, well, except for that piece that I just unraveled, never seen it do that before, but the string that it's tied to is pretty thick, almost too thick, because it stands out when you tie it in. So I'm not going to try to keep pulling that. I'll just tie it with the fluff on it. So I'm going to tie both of these in right on top of each other, right behind the eye. And if you notice, I tied it in and then flipped it back and tied it over again, just to give it the string a little bit of a hook to hold on to the thread. I'll do that again with this one. So I got 2 or 3 turns there, and I'll pull the string. Try to get it to lay down. Well, it's not going to. Oh well, if it comes off, it comes off. Okay, so I got some turns there. Before I tie this, I'm going to put some more nail polish on the eyes, just to make sure they're really locked in there. If a fish gets their teeth in there, it'll it can cut that string. Even though I've got so many turns there, I just want to make sure it's nice and solid so that it doesn't come apart on me. And then I've got my hackle pliers, these little pincher things. These are made to hold a feather. When you wrap the feather around it, it makes it so it's easier to hold. But I'm going to put these two pieces together. Pinch them together like that. And I'm going to twist so they mix together. Whenever I have really cheap Christmas garland, I do the same thing with Christmas garland. I put two colors, or I put the green and like the green garland and the colored garland together and mix them, twist them. So anyway, so I get that. Kind of almost gives you an orange look, but it's still red and gold. And then I'm going to take my thread before I start this and work my way up to the front where I'm going to tie it off. So I'm going to tie it to right there, and that's where I'm going to stop the body. Maybe actually right here at the, after this bump. It'll kind of have a little bit of a taper to it, and then I'll finish my head right there at the end. So I'm just going to wrap this around several times. I'm going to try to get it. I'm going to go around one time behind the eyes, and then my next one I'm going to come between the eyes just one time right there, and that'll be enough because I'm just going to bump right into it right there. And I'm just going to keep going around until I get to the front of the hook. And if I don't like the look of it at that point, I'll come back over these. Yeah, I'm going to come give it a little bit more here, just so it's a little fluffier. Right there. So then you just take this and twist it around so it crosses the thread, and then you tie back. And I can do like I did at the back of the fly, where I go bend it back towards itself a little bit and just start twisting towards the head of the fly. Snip that off. And now I've actually got enough there still to make another fly. I just won't use as many twists. So I'm going to come in and build up a head a little bit right here. And then I'm going to turn my vise over. Like that. And then I'm going to get some of my deer hair. I'm just going to cut off a little chunk of this. Now this stuff is from the body near the tail. And this is actually made for, you use it in flies for tying and making everything fluff out, and then you cut it and you can trim it in a shape. I'm not using it for that, obviously, but because of that, it's very, like, I think these hairs are kind of like hollow almost to keep the deer comfortable when it's cold out. So I'm just going to take a few. I'm going to do the same thing I did with the back and get rid of some of these under hairs here. Under hair. And get these longest ones out so they're kind of all the same. Typically you would put this in a hair stacker, but I'm not too worried about it. The biggest thing is I want to have this tie in so that it kind of goes in the front of the hook so that this fish can't see the hook as easily. Because sometimes fish can be a little wary of things like hooks if they see them. So I'm just going to come in here and not stab myself with the hook. I'm just going to grab that like that. You see it's starting to try to flare up, and I'll just tie through all that. I'll just continue to build the head. I'm going to take a couple of wraps underneath the hair. I'll pull it up like this and go under it, under most of it, and that'll just help it bind in a little better. And I've got some bits of this hair. I'll loosen this up again so you can see it. When it fluffs up, you can see little bits sticking out. And I want to try to tie so that that stuff is all covered up, just so I get a good solid orange head on the fly. Come back around like I had it in the beginning. That. And then I'll use my whip finisher. This thing puts a little special twist. First, I'm going to give it a half hitch just to help hold things tight. And then this basically puts loops over itself. And so you can kind of start in the back. Try not to grab all these hairs. Get these out of the way. Should be enough. Just get a few turns in there. Just go ahead and finish it off. If there's anything sticking out, I'll just cut it off. That's pretty much it. So you do that. Then you get a little bit of nail polish. And go around. Just give the head a good finish there. And that's pretty much it. And that's the fly finished. So, just to get a look at that finished fly. So in the water, when you throw it, it should ride this way. Like that. Hold it with these. There. And there's the fly. Hope you enjoyed. Thanks for watching.